Let me start by saying that very few people today would argue that a knowledge economy in Lebanon is a critical pillar of any future revival plan for the country, and that promoting Lebanon as a digital hub or creative cluster in the region is a must. And at the core of it all is having the ability to export tech services in exchange for much needed hard currency. Detractors will argue that this is easier said than done, and others will passionately say that we have no option but to try hard and that the diaspora has a big role to play. We at LebNet decided 18 months ago that we can make the most impact by developing the demand side of the outsourcing play in the US and Canada. We later renewed our intentions in a call to action back in December of 2019. And as the video alluded to, we have been working closely with companies in Lebanon to assess our ability to successfully deliver results to US and Canadian clients. We are pleased to feature 4 of the many companies we support as the first vetted cohort of partners, with the hope that many more come forward or get created as we crank up demand for their services. And before I introduce our panelists, I want to acknowledge that we're very encouraged by the many initiatives being created out there as puzzle pieces to construct the full view of Lebanon as a digital hub story. Amazing teams like the ones at jobsforlebanon.com or the SE Factory and others are plugging important gaps on that canvas with tremendous energy and dedication. Without further ado, I would like to thank our panelists today who have accepted to represent their fellow Lebanese companies and at times even take the arrows on their behalf to help us answer the question, is outsourcing technical jobs to Lebanon still a valid option? So we have with us today Daniel Riscalla, who's President and CEO of CME, Samer Kehdy, Managing Director at Novelus, Fadi Sabbagha, Founder and CEO at Born Interactive, and Nagib Abdelnour, Co-founder and CEO at Koein. So we're going to start by going through some introductions. So we're going to spend the next hour or so on questions I will pose to the panelists, and this will be followed by 15 minutes of Q&A from the audience. So please start submitting those online in the Q&A chat box. Daniel, can you please briefly introduce yourself and describe what your firm focuses on? I'm going to go ahead and share your slides and let me know when to move to the next one.
Okay, thank you, George. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Riscalla. I'm based in California in the US. I'm part of the CME team. CME has been around for quite a while. CME was founded over 40 years ago in the US, and we have an amazing team in Lebanon who founded our Lebanese office 15 years ago. We've been lucky over the years to grow our team to over 350 engineers. We kind of focus on long-term relationships, so we've had many customers that we work with for a very, very long time. And we're really focused on making a difference with our clients. So our specialty is really in engaging with clients long-term and figuring out how we can make a difference in their solution, with their customers, etc. Next slide, please. We cover a broad set of services. We really cover anything pertaining to technology, from software engineering to hardware engineering, including IoT devices. We have a tremendous team that does customer service. We specialize in process automation. We've developed some AI technologies and gotten some patents around some of our solutions. One thing that's pretty unique about us is how we cover holistically the whole process from software to hardware to support, which makes us pretty unique because there's no fences between these different disciplines and allows us to develop some very effective solutions. Next slide, please. So as you all know today, there's a lot of choices in outsourcing. With a global economy, outsourcing is all over the place. You can reach developers in any country in the world. And the big question is, well, why would anybody work with a firm like ours, with CME? And there's a few things that really differentiate us from the competition. You know, one, we've been around for a long time, so we have a lot of maturity and experience. We have long tenure employees too, both in the US as well as in Lebanon. We have employees that have been with us in Beirut over 10, 15 years. In the US, we have employees that have been with us for over 30 years. And that means we have really senior staff that understands engineering, the discipline, and how to develop and construct a solution. We've also been very lucky to work with some very large names over the course of the years, from companies like AT&T, Bell Labs, Honeywell, Kantar Group, Subway, etc. And across a large set of industries, which means we have experience in a lot of different industries, including like the healthcare industry, the restaurant industry, the telecommunication industry, etc. Our retention has also been really, really good, which is a big differentiator. By having employees been around with you for a very long time and working on the same client for a very long time, it makes it pretty unique because it allows us to develop some deep expertise in the domain that the client is in and really add value, not just from a programming point of view, but from a industry knowledge, from a relationship with the customer and their key stakeholders, as well as the industry that they're in. Next slide, please. So over the years, we've been able to develop some really interesting solutions that allowed us to cover over 50 million users, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. One of our solutions, for example, runs in over 30,000 businesses in 30 countries across the world in 15 different languages. So some pretty far-reaching technologies. We've won many awards over the years. We've even gotten many patents in a variety of technologies. And our global presence also makes us pretty effective in terms of developing software around the clock and really handling different scenarios in terms of time zones and countries where clients are, etc. At the end of the day, I always say, what's the single most differentiator between CME and anyone else? It's really our culture. We have amazing employees, especially in our Beirut office, that show really good dedication and work around the clock to make an impact on our customers. And that culture of do whatever it takes to be successful is really what makes a big difference between us and any other competitor. Thank you, George.
Great, thank you. Samer, can you move on and maybe try to introduce yourself and help us on the Novelus front?
Thank you, George. Thank you, everyone, for attending. My name is Samer Kehdy. I'm the Managing Director of Novelus. As George mentioned, basically we are in the recruitment and high-tech companies. Our workforce is spread in different locations, including Latin America, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Our main model is to provide specialized talents working in an outsourced model. It can be as a staff augmentation, managed services, or software as a service, so SaaS. Next slide, please, George. We mainly specialize in software development and telecom engineering, and our forte is in procuring the talents that are hard to find and those who have the latest skills in emerging technologies. Most importantly, we focus on understanding our clients, the client's culture, and then we hire and train our workforce to fit this culture. We have more than 12 years of records, low employees turnaround, and record client retention. So Daniel, when we were speaking, I really was like, we have a lot in common actually, CME and Novelis, and George can actually speak to that. Next slide, please, George. We really put lots of efforts in understanding our clients' needs and culture. So how they function, the way they think, what's most important for them. And we try to build a long-term relationship with them. We have HR and line managers from our side continuously reaching out to our customers to get feedback, to make sure their needs are met in terms of technical training, soft skills, trainings, and logistics, etc. We make sure we hire people with great communication skills and who fit and adapt to our client's culture, how they speak, how they communicate, and embracing the same values and being achievers, etc. Next, please. As I mentioned earlier, our team is spread in different locations, so we can accommodate different time zones and different client needs. So they can be in a nearshore model. So basically for the US, based in Latin America, since we're targeting the US market, they're on the same time zone, they can fly in within hours. They can be in Argentina, in Mexico, and Colombia. So it's just very easy for them to get there. They can be an offshore model, either because they work on tasks without needing constant supervision, or because they need to overlap with their American managers just for a couple of hours and that's it, or when they are needed to actually cover around the clock presence. So to cover the time span when it's nighttime in the North America, for instance. And finally, also when local presence is needed for specific projects. Say a client has a project in France or in Saudi Arabia or somewhere, and they need a local team there, we can provide that too. Next, please. Now, in terms of the actual sectors and skills we cover, so mainly in software developers and data analysts, all types, but I would just like sample is the one specialized in the latest fields and technologies, so AI, big data, open source, DevOps. On the technology consultants, expert in virtualization, SDN, Open Control, etc. Telecom specialists in RF engineering, scoping engineers, CAD designers. We also cover like the Gen-A part, but really specialized in telecom. So like project accounting for telecom projects, recruiters, marketing, inside sales, project coordinators, etc. So that's Novelis in a nutshell.
Great, thank you. And I'm gonna stop sharing. Nagib, sorry. Nagib, can you maybe share your slides and cover Koein?
Yes, sure. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to meet you all and to speak to you, especially the Lebanese diaspora and all our friends abroad. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Nagib Abdelnour, founding partner at Koein. Koein is a digital solution agency in Lebanon. For over 17 years, we have been providing quality solutions that impress and bring business results. And we're very happy that we were able to exceed our client expectation on more than one occasions in our deliveries. We're expert in digital because we're able to understand, create, adapt, and improve strategies, create advanced user experience that are focused on being intuitive and fast. And we've been consistently doing so for over 20 years now. And because we're able to develop any infrastructure to support our online projects. Our custom development covers online stores, online news portals, video on demand platform, and custom digital projects that could be anything, plus business software such as CRM, ERP, and content management systems. Our flagship products are Weavy. It's a cloud-based online ordering for restaurant shops and groceries. It's an advanced solution for providing merchants with their online ordering. It provides a website application for Android and iOS out of the box in just 1 week. We're able to do this in 1 week, moving any type of business, retail, or any kind of a store. It's home to Dairy Queen, Subway, Burger King, and 70 other happy customers. After that, we have Weavy Pro, which is advanced, totally tailor-made e-commerce solution with outstanding features and powerful e-com dashboard, so our customers can understand user behavior, user flow, and how they are interacting with their product and website. It's home to HT, Marie France, Bata, and some 40 other happy customers. Also, I would like to introduce our e-voting platform. It's an electronic voting system used by Lebanese syndicates for election. It's suitable for any organization or institution that would like its member to vote in a one-day event, display result in less than 5 minutes, totally secure with traceability. Finally, I want to introduce a front deck. It's for digital business transformation. It's a ready-made infrastructure for building process-based corporate internal software. It is essentially like a Lego building blocks that you can assemble very rapidly and create complex interfaces. It comes out of the box with many UI UX components that are mobile friendly and very fast, that you can assemble them to create a complex interface composition very rapidly. It also comes out of the box with our notification and messaging layer. This is something that we have worked on many years, trying to bring together the information and the communication around it, be it an invoice, a project request, a task. You'll always have the information and all the notification and messaging around it. So it's for any asset to allow total history tracking and continuous communication. And of course, out of the box, you get a security layer where you have login and user management role with granular permission management. How can we achieve, using Frontdeck, rapid digital business transformation? Well, it's basically because over the years, we created like our own process from our own project cycle. So it all starts with full business process review to understand current process, current systems and tools our customers could be using, because we want to integrate system together. We don't want every time to reinvent everything from scratch. After this due diligence on the process and the existing tools, we can suggest optimized business flows that work for the digital era. So this will allow us to set expectations and Gantt chart timelines. So finally, we assign dedicated team to develop and provide the software. Our dedicated team is full-time dedicated developer. They could vary during the project cycle, or they could be many developers working on the same project in parallel. But what we offer as a shared for all of them, for our developer, it's on-demand UI UX experts that are present and can interfere rapidly to advance and solve any UI UX problems that occurs during a project life cycle. We also provide CTO, project managers that our project managers are trained and have the skill to integrate flawlessly with the existing client infrastructure and to allow him transparent view of the entire project cycle, where we are, what challenges we are faced. So our customer really consider our team as being their team and an integrated part of their company. We also do quality assurance to make sure we can rapidly deploy online without any bugs. Sorry. And this has allowed us to serve more than 800 clients, and we've been involved in about 1,000 projects and more. Some of our customers would be in the online ordering, Burger King, DQ, Zaatar Zayt, Subway. Online store, we've worked with Aishti, Fasanab, Al-Bata, Rifai. We're able to, some of our news portals are among the best, being Tayar.org or MTV. Also, we've created very nice projects for Toyota. And we are able to work with flagship banks that were like, they used to be way more important than they are today. And thank you for your time, and very pleased to be part of this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Nagib. And last but not least, Fadi Sabbagha, can you please share and introduce Born Interactive to us, please?
Yes, sure. Okay. Thank you, George. Thank you, LebNet, for having me. I'm very excited and pleased to be on this panel. I'm the founder of Born Interactive, integrated communication agency. By integrated communication agency, we are an agency that I started 24 years ago. We have served so far 35 countries, client in 35 countries. We are a bit more than 70 engineers, mostly in Beirut, with 10 client servicing and business development resources in Saudi Arabia, one in Dubai and one in Doha. And we've worked on a bit more than 2,500 projects so far. Our mission is to offer creative, innovative, and result-generating state-of-the-art digital and interactive communication solutions and experiences, addressing the evolving needs of local, regional, and international, institutional, and corporate clients. We rely on our team of really handpicked specialists and definitely on our solid and long-lasting relationships and partnerships with our clients and other channels we work with. We had the chance through the 24 years to work for a very broad spectrum of industries and sectors, ranging from, we have a big portfolio in banking and financial services, in insurance, in education, airlines, airport-related industries, a really diversified portfolio of industries, as well as brands. You can see many prominent local, regional, and multinational brands with whom we've been doing business for many years. You will see a lot of banks like HSBC, Blum Bank, Warba Bank, Kuwait, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Hollandi Bank. You will see the Coca-Colas of this world, Eli Lilly, Sanofi Aventis. You will see Sita, the airline industry provider, as well as other brands, for whom we have developed and designed solutions related to communication, being it external communication or internal communication. What we offer is this 360 approach in digital communication initially that combines web, mobile, branding, integration of solution, commerce, digital products, in general for the communication industry. And today we like to position our services around 4 main pillars. The first one, which is performance, is mainly the strategic part and the consulting part, where we help our clients optimize and define their digital strategies and digital communication strategies. Experience is more on building the solutions for them, being it for web, mobile, or other digital platforms. Solutions is more vendor solution integration. We have partnerships in e-commerce, in content management, in cloud services, in business automation, in business intelligence solutions. And the fourth pillar, which we like a lot and we believe is the everlasting, is the content, because all the communication solutions will not last without a proper content. So we work as well with our customers in producing content. Looking at it in a different way, we look at optimizing the digital landscape of our clients that combines the owned channels, web, mobile, and email, content, all the automation channels and marketing channels, the social channels, as well as the paid channels where we help them improve their customer acquisition. Our partnerships with brands are mainly with Microsoft, Adobe on Magento, Episerver on content management, and Google. And what made us sustain the 24 years, we are an independent agency. We have succeeded in creating an ongoing, between quotes, lose-win relationship with our clients, where we always try to over-deliver. We are extremely advocates of customer centricity, and we rely on very high level of ethics and quality of service, which we believe is key to grow a significant footprint and get the business ongoing and build long-lasting relationships with our clients. The team is currently working from home, as you can see, and we are open to really what we try to, in terms of collaboration opportunities in outsourcing. We see UX, UI design projects, web design and development, mobile app design and development, online collaboration platforms and intranets, business process automation solutions, mainly around the Microsoft cloud solutions, e-commerce solutions, online media and publishing solutions. We work on a lot of publishing platforms with VOD and streaming solutions, custom development and outsourcing, digital technology services for startups, online communication and digital marketing in general. This is mainly it. We hope we will be able, this is our big family 2 Christmas ago in 2018, where we all gathered with all the kids and family in Beirut office and to say thank you to all our clients and thank you for listening to me. That was it.
Thank you, Fadi. Good picture to end on. We're going to start now sort of our session of questions that I'm going to be asking the panelists. So my first question is actually to CME and Novelis. So we'll go with Daniel first. So you both have a workforce that is spread across multiple countries. Why would a customer outsource to Lebanon instead of India, China, Eastern Europe, Vietnam? And how does Lebanese talent compare to these other countries' talent? Daniel, you want to take that?
Sure, George. That's a really, really good question. So I think there is the obvious and then the not so obvious to talk about. The obvious is we clearly have a well-educated workforce in Lebanon. People have degrees, they have advanced degrees, they often studied abroad and came back, which gives us a pretty good advantage, or at least put us on the same playing field as the competition. The second thing is communication skills. English is pretty good in our country, in Lebanon, no heavy accent, and that's really important, especially as you work remotely. So that really makes us at the same level as our competition in some of these Eastern Europe or South America or other countries. Now there's the less tangible things, and this is where it becomes more interesting. As you all know, in Lebanon, when you come and talk about politics, for example, everybody has an opinion and everybody is passionate about their opinion. Well, what's interesting is you bring that into work. So now you have a passionate employee at work that's really dedicated and pushing the envelope and challenging himself and his peers in the work that they're doing. That makes a big difference. The second thing is something that's even less obvious. Our driving skills and our chaotic driving skills in Beirut are actually one of the most important assets that we have for our programmers. You say, how can that come into play? Well, think about it. In Lebanon, we get educated since we start driving, to basically not pay attention to red lights or cops and have to pay attention to the car on the right and the car on the left and the car behind you and the car that you don't see that's going to come out of nowhere, so that you can navigate through this chaos and not get into an accident. Well, what this does over time, you're training your brain on processing input from a variety of areas and absorbing all this information and figuring out a strategy as to how to drive. Now bring that into work. And instead of having a single-threaded developer that can only think about one dimension for the problem that they're tackling, now you have a developer that is multidimensional, that can think about all kind of different aspects and complexity and solve a problem in a non-obvious way. And that really makes the biggest difference. Often when I interact with our engineers in Lebanon and somebody gets lazy and they come up with a simple solution, I'm like, why am I working with you? I can go hire somebody in India at half the price, right? That's not what makes the difference. That's not why I want to work with you in Beirut. I want to work with you because you are capable of solving more complex problems in a more intelligent fashion. And that's the less tangible skill that we bring to the table and makes us more competitive. We recently at CME went through a third-party evaluation for one of our customers, where they brought an independent firm to actually evaluate the talent of our staff, our processes, and the way we're developing software. And they actually flew into Beirut. They interviewed our engineers and spent time reviewing their work. And they were really blown away, because at the end of the day, they said, we're surprised. The talent we saw there is on par with talent we expect to see at big firms like Amazon and Google, etc. And that's really the biggest advantage we have in Lebanon. George, I think you're muted.
This is great, Daniel. I'm going to quote the first part about why they're so special and the chaotic environment. Samir, you want to take a shot?
Sure. I love the question, actually, George, and I have to agree with most of, actually, all what Daniel just said. Now, on our side, well, as I said in my intro, our main focus at Novelis is on the high-tech specialized talents, and mainly in software development and telecom. Well, we have really highly trained recruiting team, and with the tools that are now already available, it's rather easy now to find technical skills and technical talents and people that are very specialized in Lebanon or outside of Lebanon. And most of the countries that you mentioned, they are really big and they have a large pool of skillful talents. So if you want to compare like these to these, again, you can find skillful talents everywhere. But I really believe that the soft skills, just as Daniel mentioned, Lebanon is all about soft skills, about the character, about those soft traits that we have. And really, I believe the soft skills and the character are equally and sometimes more important than technical skills. So usually if we end up finding someone who would fit 80% of the technical requirements, but with the needed personality traits and soft skills, we usually push to hire them and train them, even if that means extra cost on the short term. So we always believe in long-term engagements usually with our clients, and we are ready to invest in our workforce. So on the soft skills side, and without generalizing, of course, Lebanese are usually achievers. They're hard workers, they're hungry for work. They have great communication skills. As Daniel was saying, like we speak 3 languages, etc. They have an innovative mindset, flexible, and they don't mind working crazy hours, like working on US time zones. We have teams that start working in the afternoon, for instance, and stop at 2 a.m. Others who would start at 4 a.m. and then stop at 2 p.m. and just to accommodate the client needs. So it depends on the requirements, on job requirements. And again, all that is not just to promote Lebanon. Actually, let me share with you a real example to prove my point. When we started this business 12, 13 years ago, and for the first few years, we were really focusing mainly on providing nearshore resources for the North American markets. So of course we had a team in Lebanon, but it was only 25% of our workforce. And the rest was mainly in Latin America, so Argentina, Mexico, Colombia. And fast forward to 2020, we grew 6-fold, but now have 60% of our workforce in Lebanon and 40% spread between mostly Latin America, but also in Eastern Europe. So most of our growth happened in Lebanon. And based on the current demands and forecasts, we believe that this will become more like 75% within 2 years from now. And all that is because of clients' demands, because of clients preferring to have most of their teams in Lebanon. And mainly because they felt and they believed in those soft skills that we're talking about. I hope this answered the question, George.
No, this is great. It helps a lot. I'm going to move to the next question, which is somehow related, but it's a little bit more specific. I was planning to have you all answer, but since we want to catch up on time, I'm going to go to maybe Nagib first. What are the main skills that exist in Lebanon that the diaspora or the LebNet members, let's say, should consider leveraging, and in which sectors? Let Nagib answer that, then go Fadi, and then I'll just give Daniel and Samir the opportunity to add if there was anything that they didn't hear that was missing as far as the skills. So again, what are the skills that exist in Lebanon that the diaspora should consider Lebanon for outsourcing? And what are the sectors that are important?
Since it's somehow related to the first question, I have to say that I really like Daniel's answer, and I request permission to quote him because he was able to nail what I exactly was feeling. Many times I did not find the words to express it. So, being a tech and an ICT skills, I imagine that this panel is about this. I think the skill we would recommend people from outside Lebanon to hire would be programmers and developers, mainly. Also designers, but mainly developers, because we have very good experience. We have people, if we have to be more specific, we have back-end experience, database, data mining, and data management skills. We have people now, mostly the young generation, they are very skilled in UI, UX, because they can manage to combine both creativity and usability with some programming skills, so they can create amazing UI and UX interfaces. I don't think I have much to add on this question. So
No problem. Fadi, you want to take a shot?
I want to add on everyone, because actually, yes, what makes us different compared to other development and outsourcing countries, I believe, again, is the language and the soft skills. But I will add as well on the driving experience, that all our life is based in Lebanon, is based on challenges and figuring out ways and creative thinking and problem solving, which makes, on top of just the pure development skills and solution and the technical skills, having project managers and senior technical skills that can really manage on solving problems and eventually do a buffer with bigger teams of pure development and staff augmentation resources. Lebanon is a small country, but with so much exposure on the international markets through a very vibrant diaspora and the connections with all the world. Most of our people had the chance to study abroad and come back, which makes it a very good lab to experience different sectors and different industries, but you don't have the scale and don't have the market. So in terms of sectors, any sector can be leveraged because we have this facility and this easiness of integrating different solutions together. Again, what makes us different is the communication, the soft skills, and which are key for managing projects and managing complex projects and making them reach their destination.
This is good. Actually, I'm reading one of the chats that just came in from Imad Chouairi saying, allow me to add, Lebanese take initiatives. They don't take no for an answer. They scratch their heads to solve based on our experience with other countries. Developers just follow the guidelines and they're stuck when they are. So anyway, so I just wanted to add that. Listen, this is an important question because it kind of paints what are the differentiating characteristics of a Lebanese coder or designer. So I do want to dwell a bit on this. Daniel and Samer, do you guys have anything to add as far as skills that were not mentioned?
Yeah, George, I actually have quite a bit to add.
Go for it.
So we all focus on the core, which is programming, development, software, etc. But there's really some peripherals that are very important and unique. Some are what I call niches. So one, for example, that we often don't look into, we have really good hardware skills in Lebanon in terms of electronic engineering, mechanical engineering, etc. And even for a company that is looking for software, sometimes hardware can be a differentiator. And what's unique about Lebanon, you can assemble a team that can do both software and hardware with no barriers between the two and develop some really unique solutions in this area. Second thing is on the very high end of the spectrum, there is some really advanced technologies that we do really well in Lebanon. That's machine learning, AI, data analysis, and we have some really talented people in this area in the country that can contribute tremendously. But if I was to look at the future, I'll say, okay, that can create some jobs, but limited jobs. What can create lots of jobs for our country, for Lebanon? And one area that keeps coming to mind is really customer support. Who hasn't had the experience of calling into some call center that ends up being in India and having to walk through the 12 methodical, stupid questions, and you get frustrated and bored because that person on the other line doesn't even try to think. So now think about this. In Lebanon, we have people may not have a degree, but they have good communication skills, they have good problem-solving skills, and they're capable of really think outside the box to interact with customers. We are very good in Lebanon with tourism. Why? Because of how we interact with people. So you can apply all those skills in the call center and the customer service industry and really create lots of jobs in our country in this area. Those were my
awesome. This is great. Actually, I'm going to tell everybody that's on this call that since we're recording this event, please tell your friends to kind of go back and review the video. There's a lot of great nuggets here. Samir, you have anything to add?
Well, actually, not much to add. I just want to summarize. So really, if I want to choose particular sectors that I would go to specifically in Lebanon, I would go for the ones that require, we've all talked about communication skills, flexibility, and creativity about the Lebanese. So we really want to go after those. So I would say anything that includes engineering, marketing, software developers, call centers, customer support, inside sales. I think those are the things we want to really focus on. Okay.
So since you're, I have you, Samir, can you also address the question of rates, right? So, I mean, give us a rough idea on how Lebanon compares on tech labor rates to other countries like India, Vietnam, Ukraine, Romania. What the competition basically that's out there for the low-cost outsourcing skill labor?
Honestly, when we talk about rates, I think it's misleading to only compare rates. If one look at it, one should be looking at the overall cost, the cost of hiring, training, replacing when needed, and thus when replacing, then retraining again. So what's very important is also the productivity. And also if someone is really flexible and creative, et cetera, et cetera. So a developer and that is creative is worth much more than developer just like you have to give them, well, do that and that and that task and that's it. Now, if you are to compare rates in India and Vietnam are at least 30% lower than Lebanon. That said, the Indian culture in general is more of, and I don't want to generalize, but again, in general, it's just like I joined this company, even if it is for low salary, I learn, then I leave to get a better salary in another company and leave after probably 6 months, that's it. I've been trained, I know more, I am worth more, and I move. So employee turnaround is excessively high compared to other markets. So if you're looking for short-term engagement and say you need a software developer to crack some code just for a short period, India might be a good cheaper option. If you're looking for a candidate to join you for a long term, who you would invest in training, who would embrace your company's culture, and who has great communication skills, then it's not a good option at all. Eastern Europe is much better on the employee turnaround. Communication skills is so-so, I would say. Again, it depends, but usually they're not very good English speakers. But now with the euro gaining on the US dollars and the cost of living there drastically increasing in the last few years, it has become, I think, a very expensive option. Rates there are usually at least 25% more expensive than Lebanon, and in some cases, much more than that. So the rates are so high that outsourcing to Eastern Europe might not be a viable option anymore. Now, let's look a bit at Latin America, so Argentinians in particular. Argentinians have a culture and traits that are very close to Lebanese. So, but if you are to hire in Buenos Aires, for instance, so the capital, where you have a large pool of candidates, then the rates are also around 25% higher than Lebanon. You can always hire from other locations like Cordoba, for instance, the rates there are closer to Lebanon, but then the pool of resources or of candidates is much smaller, and you might not find what you're looking for. So that's just like more of an idea.
So Daniel, I don't know, you have the same sort of, you have in your organization a lot of other countries where you have employees. Can you also tell us roughly how, again, do you agree with Samer? And also, do you think that now with the more economic downturn in Lebanon that this is adding to being a little bit more competitive, or what do you think?
So Samer really brought up a lot of good points in terms of comparing the rates between Lebanon and some of the competition. But the first thing that I always struggle with is what is the real rate in Lebanon? And there is what most people do, which is, I guess you can say, the official rate versus the real rate. So the first element is really how you operate in Lebanon. If you operate the Lebanese way, you're cheaper because you have double books and you don't pay everything. If you operate everything above board, which is really where everything is going these days in terms of fighting corruptions and doing things the right way, the rates in Lebanon are really expensive. There is the out-of-pocket rates in terms of salaries, etc., but there's also all the liabilities you end up carrying in Lebanon, which really bring all your rates significantly up. Lebanon is not business friendly. Lebanon is really employee friendly. And that makes us a lot less competitive with other countries like India, etc. So that presents a challenge because you will have, no matter what you do, corporations that will look at a spreadsheet and will look at cost per employee. And whenever they are making decisions based on that, we will lose every single time. Compared to India, compared to China, compared to Latin America, we are much more expensive when it comes to that. Then you have companies that are a little bit smarter, and they look at the throughput, the productivity, and the total value of the employee. And there we can win. I say can because we're all human beings. And even though we have all the foundation and elements in Lebanon to be different and contribute a lot more, we can also be lazy and forget that we have that and operate in a way that's not competitive. I've seen often developers do things that they shouldn't be doing that you'd expect from somebody in India or in some other country. So what is very important is the company culture you have in Lebanon and how you surround your employees and force them or push them to outperform and leverage their strengths. So I give you an example with a customer like Subway. They often make the comment, they cannot tell the difference between who's a CME Lebanese employee versus who's a Subway North America employee. And that's how you win. Because now the total value of our employees is totally comparable to a US employee.
Great. So if anybody thought this was going to be an easy answer and giving rates per hour, you're mistaken. It is a more complex answer, of course. So let me ask Fadi. Again, everybody's probably thinking the broadband and the internet. So what's the status of that as far as an infrastructure? Is it a hindrance for exporting tech services today? And what's your redundancy approach or backup plans in case of failure?
Okay, I'm sure we don't have the best internet of the world, but we're used to it. And this is very important. And it's good enough to allow us to have multiple redundant connectivity at the office, let's say, and enough connectivity for our people to connect to the cloud. And when they're working from home to connect properly via VPN, and we're not really facing any problem on that. Many of us have already fiber at home, which makes it a blessing. Our 4G in Lebanon is good enough. The only challenge is really if with the current situation, the government fails on sustaining the IT infrastructure and the connectivity infrastructure. But I would say it's a very extreme case and not likely to happen because everything is connected to that. And $6 on WhatsApp made a revolution imagine no internet. Everybody, even those who did not participate to the revolution, will go on the streets. We cannot, it's not even envisageable. But definitely, I would say it's a mitigated challenge, but we're living with it.
Great. Let me ask Nagib, instead of answering it, I think Fadi did, but what is your do you have a redundancy plan or a backup plan if something does happen?
Well, correct, yes. Because the way we see it, the way we operate as an IT company is we're not content distributor. So the content that's being accessed, we're building solution that provides some kind of an information that's accessible to end users, sometimes to the end user, sometimes our internal software. But what's important to consider is that the node that's delivering the content is not a node inside Lebanon, meaning all our servers are either in Europe, USA, or some other random location based on our customers. Even businesses that will serve their content mostly at 80, 90, 99% to Lebanese audience, they do host their infrastructure outside Lebanon because it's cheaper, it's more available, you get a higher bandwidth, and because it's very experienced. So our products, the bandwidth, delivery, output, throughput is not affected by the current situation of Lebanon. But as Fadi said, the connection is good enough because eventually what we end up doing is uploading files. So if I'm uploading like a 2 megabyte file online, like an update or something, it might take me in Lebanon like 30, 40, 45 seconds. There are 30, 40, 45 seconds wasted, while in other location it could be instant, but still it's manageable in an 8-hour shift or whatever. So as Fadi said, you get used to it. You start forgetting about it. You go outside Lebanon, use a connection, you use something that is very fast, and then the reality, you're shocked by the reality. So this has never affected our problem. No, it's not. It has not affected us today, but it affected the industry. We don't have data centers in Lebanon. We don't have anybody hosting his services in Lebanon. But as developer and contractor to do developer, we're good. Regarding redundancy, because of revolution and COVID now, so we got used to working remotely. And by working remotely, we're using available tools, things like GitHub and repositories. So every employee backup starts with his PC. He has a running project, a copy of his project on his PC. So wherever he is on with his laptop, he can connect from Starbucks to upload. He can connect from home, from the office. He can go to somebody that has connectivity to connect through him, via him. So using state-of-the-art VPN for protection and whatnot, we're able to manage redundancy. So we have redundancy on the laptop level, on the GitHub. Our beta servers with redundancy, double connection for our servers that are beta to be online, but mostly everything is going to be delivered from the end user.
Great. Thank you, Nagib. I'm going to move to Daniel to answer the question of how would your client's intellectual property be protected? What contractual, legal, or technical measures will you put at their disposal to be able to do that?
Very good question, George. But before I go down this path, I want to quickly answer the prior question, tying it to the question before that, which is infrastructure. While quality and redundancy are available to us in Lebanon, the cost is very high. And that makes us less competitive on the price. And that's something that we really need to keep in mind. So going down to intellectual property, we at CME have really developed a mature process over time to address this, because for all North American companies, this is a very important topic. So we've institutionalized across all of our employees, even including myself in any country, all of our employees in Lebanon, we do employment contracts with intellectual property protection and documents, very legal, very enforceable in each country. We also do background checks on every employee. They cannot start working on any customer project before passing background check, including criminal, academic, etc. And then we actually, because we have a US entity that really works with the customers in the US, we have proper liability and cyber liability insurance to protect the employees in case something went wrong. Now, there's a couple things also that help. They're less tangible, but having low turnover in your company is an asset, because the longer your employees have been, the less risks you have. There's more known entities instead of having employees come and go all the time. And finally, we have tremendous experience in PCI certification, PCI level 1 certification, which means we know how to put the procedures in place to enforce security across all aspects of the organization, because security is going to come not just in terms of employees. You have to secure your processes, you have to secure access, you have to secure the infrastructure, make sure that your firewalls and the servers are all properly updated and maintained. You have to have a process in terms of who can access what. In some cases, you need to require two-step authentication to access the data. You have to identify which data needs to be secured. And, you know, I often hear, for example, developers complaining how it's cumbersome to access logs from production. Well, we don't allow that, because our production environments are always protected and managed by a very small group of people that have proper security clearance to do that. So it's really procedural, legal, but also company processes and insurance.
This is good to know. Samir, do you want to add to that? I mean, obviously, you probably do almost the same, but if you have something to add too.
Well, actually, I have not a lot to add. The only thing I would add is, well, from like a legal perspective, I think Daniel has covered that, and we all do that. My only thing is, I want to ask a question here. What's the difference between someone really getting into and actually like accessing, let's say, a client's whatever data, what have you, from Lebanon or from Atlanta, if they are in the US, if the company is in New York, for instance? It's probably the same thing. And we would be going through a VPN tunnel, would be just having the right security, like data security and cybersecurity. I think it's good, and we're protecting everything. So we should be good. So on top of the legal, that's on the technical side, it's no difference actually between someone just accessing from Lebanon or from anywhere else in the world for that purpose.
I would add one thing. I want to go back to my analogy of driving in Lebanon. So even if you're driving in the US, you come to a stop sign at midnight. Will you do a full stop or not? And most people will not, even in the US, right? But if you knew that there could be a cop somewhere in the vicinity, you will always make a full stop. So the risk in Lebanon is that because the legal aspect of the country is not always well enforced, employees might think that they can take some liberties when it comes to intellectual property. So what is important is that your company has to make it clear to the employees that you will enforce the legal process and the rules to the full extent. If the employee knows that, then they will not veer outside of their lane. They will respect all the rules and regulations that you've put in place. And I think that's really important.
This is great, Daniel. This is very helpful. Listen, we're running behind. I can't keep up with you guys. I'm trying to knock off questions, but this question is to all, but I want you really just to give us a very quick answer, each one of you. So in today's current monetarily and financially challenged environment in Lebanon, how will you get paid by your North American customers? Just quickly, Fadi, go.
We have bank accounts actually in Cyprus and Dubai, and in addition to Lebanon. So the customers who cannot pay in Lebanon, they can pay our company accounts, official company accounts in Cyprus and Dubai.
Good. Nagib.
Well, as long as they are willing to pay, we will find a way to get paid. There will never be a problem in this. Currently, we're still doing the conventional way. which is we're still receiving our bank accounts in Lebanon, and we're able to access the full amounts. Our bank are not having any issues with that. So nothing has changed yet, but in case things get escalated in the future, as Fadi said, you've already set up the pipe so we can receive in other countries, and we'll do the final mile delivery from Cyrus to Beirut, underwater, over water. We'll always find a way. There should not be an issue. But this should not be a concern because we'll always be able to get
and that's really why I'm asking the question, because a lot of people would think, oh, it's a concern, and I kind of wanted them to hear from you folks. Samir, just quickly, same thing.
Just opened in Cyprus and Dubai, and we're good to go. And we did that actually 2 years ago, so we foresaw what's coming, and we're good to go.
Daniel?
For us, it's really simple. We have a U.S. entity. Contracts are with the U.S. entity. Payments are with the U.S. entity. And the customer doesn't have to worry about anything. And we figure everything else under the cover amongst ourselves.
So CME takes Venmo, I'm assuming, then now, right? Or PayPal.
That's right.
Okay, let's move to a couple of more questions before we open it for Q&A. I'm going to ask, actually, sorry, I'm going to ask Samir to answer this one. So it's no secret that the Lebanese business environment today faces challenges with its current labor laws, lack of proper ease of doing business regulations, corruption, government shortcomings. Do you believe that the diaspora should still consider outsourcing work to Lebanon while waiting for more favorable political and economic conditions? Why do you think that? And what is your role in sheltering the client from daily political disruptions, and how much risk is your client expected to assume?
Great question, George. Well, in every business, there are always challenges and risks. Now, for the challenges around employment laws and ease of doing business, we are very well established in Lebanon. So one of our main roles is to shelter our clients from any shortcomings related to that part. Now, there are always some actual risks that when we have no means to decrease the risk. So in those instances, our role as business leaders is to find contingency plans. So plan B or something. For instance, when the protest started in Lebanon in October of last year, we had to think of what ifs. So what if there is unrest? What if people cannot get to the office? What if, though very unlikely to happen, but what if we start having internet issues? So we devised contingency plans accordingly, working from home as a start, even before the pandemic, but also all the way to devising a plan on moving everyone to Jordan, for instance. It's 45 minutes away by plane. So, and that was in case of if the problems become unbearable. And we already have a small team in Jordan, so around 5 people. They helped us to find out what it would take us to move 100 people there, 150 people there within a reasonable time. And all that in order not to disrupt our client's business. So to answer your question, George, yes, as long as the client knows that there is a plan B and their work will not be disrupted, Lebanon should definitely still be considered as an outsourcing hub.
Great question, great answer. So I'm going to actually go to Daniel for this one. This webinar is not meant to address improvements needed to take place in Lebanon to increase competitiveness, and we're going to schedule probably separate webinars for that from a LebNet perspective. But having said that, what are the top 3 issues you would recommend that LebNet should push for in Lebanon whenever we're meeting with government officials, technology ecosystem representatives, or academia? Just quickly, what are the top 3 things you think are critical to make it competitive?
Really good question, George. So I'll mention a few things that I believe are really important. One, I alluded to earlier, Lebanon is not business friendly. And if you own a business in Lebanon, you build up a lot of liabilities in terms of Daman, Social Security, ability to keep employees or let go employees, etc. And that makes it hard to be nimble and financially competitive. But there's a couple things that are now coming out of the current atmosphere and environment in Lebanon. The first one is the government really has to do things to invest in job creation in the country, long-term job creation, not short-term job creation. And there's different ways to do this, and there's a lot of good models in the US. Even here in California, I can get subsidies from the local state or the local city to either get me an interest-free loan or get me a grant if I'm creating some jobs. And I'm accountable for creating these jobs. And Lebanon should do the same thing. Lebanon should say, you know, if you create so many jobs in year 1 or year 2, I'm going to give you some credit on your Social Security payments or your income taxes or whatever. So really invest in the long-term job creation in the country. The other one is, and that one is a more subtle one, but if you think about it, there's going to be a lot of pressure on young people to go work because there isn't enough income in their family. And what that means is people are going to be encouraged to not continue their education. Less people will finish their high school. Less people will go to the university and get degrees. And definitely less people will go and get educated outside the country and come back. And that means there's going to be an erosion in the level of education in Lebanon. And that really worries me because today the level of education in Lebanon, whether it's man or woman, is extremely high. And that's really one of our biggest assets. So the government really has to do things to encourage education, make it free or have grants or, you know, help people really be able to go to school and pay for it so that we can continue to have that competitiveness in terms of the education level we have.
Nagib, do you want to add anything to that just quickly before we move to the Q&A session?
Well, Daniel, as always, his contributions are very valuable and he provided the global picture. I just wanted to add to anything that are stuff that we started suffering from recently, which is the cost of startup or how much investment you need to start a business like ours, because us and all the panelists here have companies that have existed for many years now, and we are in a position that is advantageous. We have some cash flow coming from outside Lebanon, a lot of cash flow we can manage. But if I would put myself in a position that I'm starting a new company, I have tremendous setbacks now. That's stuff that I cannot solve as a startup. To name a few, it's the hardware cost. It has doubled or tripled, and it has become very difficult for people to buy laptop, mouse, keyboards, MacBooks. It's really something unaffordable, and even people who import these devices are no longer importing them. So government should have some kind of a role here to still keep this stuff accessible through renter, lender, any kind of a program, so innovation cannot be killed. Also, if I was to start a business and I want to buy an Amazon account for $200, $300, an Azure account to set up my servers, you don't have credit card now that can pay for these services. Most people are at $50 per month. I'm talking about startups, not corporates. So how would they buy these services? How would they be able to host their platform? It's a really big challenge. And also at the academic level, because of education, and this has been persistent for a long time, universities in Lebanon do not have programs that can retain students on campus to build projects. Meaning in Lebanon, you go to university from 8 to 6, you go back home. You don't stay overnight, you don't stay over the weekend, you don't move out of your house. So you don't have a campus life, you don't have a campus life, you don't have campus project. And the private companies, like the big companies in Lebanon, don't go to universities and give them some money and invest in universities so they can develop side technologies to be used later on by these businesses. So there is not a feedback loop between the corporate world and the educational world. And if LebNet can play a part in these two areas, one, to make it still possible for startup to emerge in this economy, being server-wise or hardware, and for universities to have a startup-like environment where they have projects, especially in AI and data mining. You could have a project for 3 to 5, 6 years developed at universities student could take this knowledge with them into their private companies, and private companies that have invested in this program could take the IP from universities.
Great feedback. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the main session, and we're going to now move to the Q&A session. So Nagib Khouri Haddad, I will turn it to you to guide the panel through some of the questions that the audience has logged in. It's all yours, Nagib.
Thank you, George. We have a few questions, actually. The first one is from Gabi Deek. What are the 3 most important things that the government should do to help you address international markets better and more easily? So maybe Daniel or Samir, can you take on this question?
Sure, I can.
Go ahead.
Samir, go ahead. No, you go ahead. I spoke enough.
So I think Daniel already touched on the domain and security. Like that part is very important, and it really adds to the costs and makes us a lot less competitive than others. So if you could do something on that front, so somehow decrease the social security cost, that already is tremendous. Just to give an idea here, the amount is sometimes 23 to 25% on top as a markup on top of a salary. And then there's the employment tax and all that. Second is definitely better internet. Again, internet, there's always ways to find a good internet, but it's costly, especially when you compare it to other countries. So providing better internet and cheaper internet. And that's again, the government should be doing, like helping and on that front. So that would be second. Third, I would say the infrastructure. So making sure that we have no issues in electricity and stuff like that. The problem is we all have generators, we all have what have you in Lebanon, and as usual, we have contingency plans. But if there's any kind of unrest now, and for whatever reason, you cannot get fuel to your generator, if you don't have electricity, you don't have internet, and without internet, you cannot work. So if you have those 3 at least covered, I think we can sleep a bit safer.
Daniel, can you answer it from the perspective of to reach the international markets? What kind of things would you expect the Lebanese government to do to make it easier for you?
That's a very good question. So, and Samir answered a lot of the things that are internal within the country. So I'll try to cover a little bit what the government can do outside the country. We Lebanese are really good at socializing and having connections. And I think one of the most important roles the government can play is to leverage their international connections to sell on the concept of Lebanon as a destination for technology and digital development. So kind of supporting the efforts that LebNet has in attracting candidates or customers to work with Lebanese companies and create jobs within the country. I know a lot of this had been started before. There were some really good efforts prior to COVID, and I just hope that this will continue or will grow because it's more important than ever. I do believe that the services we collectively represent on this conference here is actually the future of Lebanon. This is how we can attract foreign currency into the country and bring in imports into the country, or exports, I should say. We're exporting our talent, our intellectual property, etc. So the government really should have a very focused initiative on creating opportunities for companies like ours.
Thank you, Daniel. Another question is about internships. I mean, do you guys offer internships for students and involve them in your ecosystem? Have you hired people from Lebanon, and are you planning to do so this summer? Maybe Fadi or Nagib can take on this question.
We always have interns. We even get interns from US universities sometimes doing spending their summer vacation in Lebanon, and from some of the best universities. And it's an ongoing process. And even beyond the interns, we try to establish training programs and onboarding programs for people. So we create trainings on certain technologies to be able to recruit the best candidates. So definitely, internships are part of our operational mode.
Nagib?
Yeah, us too, we really rely on internship and we like to do it because it's a way to give back to society and try to create some of the passion, try to transfer some of the passion we have for our work to people at a very young age, and it's very important. Also, we like internship because we could ask the interns to work in specific areas where we cannot dedicate resources yet, so stuff like experimental, try this, what would you get result if you get really good candidates. And what's nice about internship is you end up you have a potential of finding a really good talent really early on and walk him the entire path and help him succeed and gain his skills while you as a company are profiting from the skills and they have very nice relationship and part of our culture. We are hiring. We are still hiring. We have vacancies, but to tell you the truth, it's kind of scary because it's the first time that we're going to hire with COVID. We've never hired somebody so much remotely, without coming to the office, without integrating with the team. So it's exciting to know what the new wave of hiring would be like. We're able to manage working distantly from home because we have a trust. The team has trust. We know each other. We know who's doing what and how he's doing it. But bringing new blood into the team remotely, we'll see how it goes.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to add a small point on that I wanted to mention before about academia and internship. If an effort can be done on making the time to market of the graduates faster, and the best way is encouraging internships like Nagib mentioned before earlier and organizing the internships. Usually there is a gap between what the market needs and what they learn at university. It's normal and it's regular and it's acceptable in normal times, but today software industry is an industry on its own, and the fastest you can feed it with resources, the better it allows us to grow and not have to, sometimes you have to do some team augmentation abroad, even ourselves. So, because we don't find all the resources we want.
Okay, thanks, Fadi. A couple of questions around the hiring of the engineers and how you incent them and to keep them. What's really your strategies here? I mean, do you try to match the skill set with your customers' requirements, and do you do some assessments along the way? How do you try to match who you hire with the needs of your customers, and then how you incent the engineers essentially to keep with you for the long term? Maybe Daniel, you can take on, and Samir, those questions.
Sure. A couple things in this regard. You know, the first one, for me, the technical skill sets are not always the most important factor, because I always say what we have is not coders or developers. We have software engineers. And that means the actual skill set can be acquired along the way. And, you know, with my senior staff, they could be the best Java developer, and I have no hesitation to put them on a .NET project. And yeah, they'll struggle initially, but they'll quickly become one of the most important assets on the project. So what's more important when we hire is the raw intellectual capability that the person has, their culture. You know, we at CME like a more humble culture. We don't like prima donnas. We want people who can be part of team and contribute as a team. So those are important things. Now, of course, the skill sets are important initially because you may be trying to fill a certain position, but often there is room for growth. You may hire somebody who's not a perfect fit, but within a few months, they become one of your best engineers. Now, retention is a good question. So I guess if I want to attract the most people, I'm going to say, well, we pay the highest salaries, but that's not the case. And I always tell employees, if you want to make the most money, quit every 3 months and go to get another job hop all the time, because you can always find somebody who will pay you a little bit more. Retention is more about the culture of the company, the relationship between management and the employee, the trust that get built, the fact that you hire an employee not because of a position or an opportunity, but for a long-term career. That's something we strongly believe at CME. I have here in the US employees have been with me for 30 plus years. And that's very unusual. And they can make a boatload of money more if they went and work somewhere else, but they'll never go. Because there is that trust, there's that culture, there's a relationship. Because at the end of the day, compensation is one element, but is not the most important element. It might be for some people, but I think for the majority of people, it's not.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Another question about managing your cost, and cost is an issue when you look for outsourcing differentiation. Have you thought about having employees in remote areas and villages where the rent is cheaper, where the wages could be maybe much lower? Have you looked at the distribution of your resources in Lebanon outside of the cities? Maybe Fadi or Nagib, take this question.
Well, we've always tested and experimented with centralized office space because we believe that having people as close to each other will allow them to grow, and transfer of knowledge would move from a person to the other, and you can really help somebody in need if you're closer to him. But what we learned in this confinement period is that you can still be as productive as you were, even more, if you use the right tools, the right assistance tools, screen sharing, remote assistance, all of what's this. You can still be more efficient, and people could enjoy working from home or remote location. So our strategy now is more to encourage people to stay out of the office, to work from home wherever it's applicable, but it's because it's not a given for everybody. If you live in a small apartment, you would love to go out, but if you have enough resources in your house, in your village, whatever, we're able to accommodate this. Having regional office, our workforce does not support this setup, but we're expecting to have more of a WeWork environment start to pop up outside the cities, where somebody could work from, could have something like a WeWork co-office space near his house. So instead of driving to Beirut, he could drive like to a small proximity and have a work day there. But this is not, we'll see how it goes. So we're shifting in this direction.
Thanks.
Personally, I would say that Lebanon is relatively a small country, and overall, even the people we hire tend to move for university before moving for work. Definitely with COVID, the working from home has taken a significant role, and some people are appreciating that. As of next week, for example, we're having people come back, but it's really an optional decision. So you would like to work from the office, you can come to the office. You'd like to work remotely, you can work remotely. And we're very flexible on that. And productivity-wise, it's quite similar. So I believe, like Daniel said before, for the massive job creation, when one think customer support and call center and this type of jobs, the remote area becomes more interesting and sexier. This is my opinion.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, let me add a couple things. I think there is, first, we do have an office in Beirut, but we also have an office outside of Beirut. But the world is evolving post-COVID, and our social behavior is evolving. So I don't know how things will be a few months from now or a year from now. I guess it depends on, you know, how everything evolves. But I've always believed that there is a need for an office, especially for younger staff. A more senior person can work remotely and be very effective. It's actually a perk to work from a home office, especially if you have kids and a family, etc. But I think it's important for somebody who's coming out of school, who doesn't have the work habits yet, to be in a work environment, because there's value in seeing your coworkers and how they behave and how they interact, and learning from that and building the discipline to work from home. So I think there's room for both depending on the person and the maturity of the person.
Thanks, Daniel. Another question, how are you serving customers, for instance, in North America and dealing with time zone issues? I know, Daniel, you covered some of that in your, and Samir. Maybe, can you elaborate a little bit on this?
Sure,
Well,
I think there's a couple scenarios. Go ahead, Samir.
Go ahead, then go ahead.
Okay, so there's a couple scenarios. It depends on the client. You know, some clients understand the concept of global development and they treat you as a true partner, which means they're willing to make an effort on their side. And what happens in that case is they start their day a little bit earlier. We start our day a little bit later, so we overlap by a healthy number of hours, and we can be very effective this way. Some other clients, or based on the nature of the position, are more restrictive. And in this case, what is most important is to set the expectation of the employee up front. They need to know that they're joining a position that requires a different type of hours, because everyone has a family, have kids, have, you know, certain dynamics that are personal. So they need to know that this is what the job expects from them so they can accommodate that, or upfront say they can't. But in general, we have flexibility. You know, the culture in Lebanon, people are willing to do what it takes to be successful. And in most cases, we've had no problem in accommodating our customers' needs.
Samir?
I think Daniel already answered that, and I touched on that in one of the answer to George's questions. But yeah, it all depends on actually the requirements, and if the job requirement actually are to have someone work on US or American time zones, we can, as long as upfront before you place someone on a project, you just tell them, as Daniel was saying, like, this is the requirements of the job. When you're upfront with that, I think you're good to go. And some people actually like to work at night. So some people, we had people at the office who would go skiing in the morning and come work at the office in the afternoon and then stay till midnight. I've did that myself for a couple of years while I was going back and forth to the US. So whenever I was in the US, I was living, of course, on US time zone. Coming back to Lebanon, I would still live on US time zone because I'm used to that. And I have clients just talking to them, and I'm used to it just working in the afternoon. So it's a question of really habits, and some people would actually like it. But again, very important to be upfront with the expectation you give to your employees. And you have actually on the other side, you have people that would work from 4 a.m. in the morning to like early afternoon, because, well, they have to be just covering the time span when it's night in the US, so nighttime in the US. So that's it.
For employees or looking for jobs in Lebanon, or students looking for their majors, is there any statistics about the size of the market, the requirements? Are there any standards? Are there any norms as they look for guidance to find opportunities in the sector? Fadi or Nagib, do you want to take on this question?
Lebanon is not that good on numbers because not really. I can answer not really.
So what guidance would you give to someone who is looking for opportunities in the sector? I mean, whether they are students and working their majors, and any recommendations, any advice you give them?
I would advise them to invest in very specific skill set knowledge that would work to their benefits, mainly AI, I would say. Try to find some nice application to AI. Data mining also is very interesting. And a little bit of hardware to put on your CV. I think it could really accelerate somebody's career these days.
So this is Daniel. I'll add to this a little bit, but I'll provide a little different perspective. I think the most important thing for any candidate is to be truthful about their strengths and weaknesses. And if they understand that, then they'll be a lot better at matching the opportunities where they can be successful and develop a career. For example, some people are much better in a narrow job, meaning I have these skill sets and I really need a job that requires these skill sets. And then just make sure you apply to those jobs. Other people are much broader. I mean, I always remember my first job. I took it I was hired as an expert in a certain set of skill sets. But to be honest with you, I had the programming book on my lap my first 3 months on the job because I knew nothing about it. So it really depends on, you know, what your capabilities are and ensuring you find the job that match that. And don't hesitate to apply. And the other thing is during an interview, often people think that it's the company interviewing them. It really needs to be both ways. You need to interview the company to see if you're a good fit and if they're a good fit for you. Because ultimately, you don't want a job where you're going to be miserable. You want a job where you're going to be happy and successful.
Thanks, Daniel. One question is, how can we increase the outsourcing opportunities for the Lebanese talent? I mean, how can we link the Lebanese resources to companies overseas, US, Canada, Australia? And what's the role of the diaspora in this? Maybe Samir, can you take on this question?
Well, it could be like some kind of job board or something like that. It could be starting by that. It could be some kind of webinars like those where we really have, like from both sides, us from side, like us or other companies, and then from the other side, clients, potential clients. It could be meetings, well, after COVID, of course, or we can do that on web. So all kind of things. I think LebNet is doing a great job at that. And there are others on like really trying, but I think those are the things I could think of.
Nagib, let me try to take a shot at this because again, it's more sort of sometimes a diaspora type of question. That is why we're so keen in LebNet to say some of the heavy lifting is convincing the diaspora in the US and Canada in giving a chance to the companies in Lebanon to send work. This is part of it. This webinar is a part of it. The video I showed in the beginning at least starts teasing the interest. And I believe that anybody that watches this webinar now has seen sort of firsthand what do some of these companies look like, and there's a level of trust, and hopefully they can start trusting Daniel, Samir, Fadi, and Nagib with some projects to start with and get a feel of the quality of the work. But we need to do a much better job at it, of course, and we need to put the word out. The job board Samir mentioned, yes, there is a. Right now, there's a great team of young people that I mentioned in the beginning who are doing jobs for Lebanon.com. It's a global job board for not just tech, but any other positions for Lebanon. That's taken some traction, and we will leverage it for freelance and other things. But at the end of the day, it's those companies that we have today on the webinar that are going to probably, hopefully, do most of the hiring because they will provide stability to some of the candidates and the talent in Lebanon, and they'll take over a lot of the things that you care about from a diaspora perspective, which is intellectual property, trust, support, ease of doing business, and all of that hopefully these companies are stepping up to shelter you from all the risk that maybe Lebanon today offers. So I just wanted to add that we're very passionate about it, and LebNet, we have a long ways to go. But it just really starts with the people on this call telling their friends, hey, let's send some work over. I heard Nagib and Koein, and maybe we should give them a small project. Daniel, let's hire a couple of people. Samir, same thing. So that's kind of, that's what we need to do. Sorry.
No, George, go ahead.
No, I finished actually. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, I totally agree with you, and I'll more explicitly differentiate between a developer in Lebanon working directly with a company outside of Lebanon versus a developer in Lebanon working for a company in Lebanon that works with customers outside Lebanon. I believe the latter is a more successful recipe because the local company in Lebanon will manage the talent, will know how to do it effectively, will know how to have contingencies in place, etc. Working individually as a freelancer, you can be successful, but that's the exception, it's not the rule. The more common scenario is going to be to have a company that you work for. So if you're a developer in Lebanon, try to find a company in Lebanon like the ones represented on this call that can give you a job, and their customer base is outside of Lebanon.
Okay, can I say something, George?
Please, Fadi, go ahead.
Yes. In our case, we've been exporting for the past 20 years of 24 years of history, and most of the work, and we've been exporting like 60 to 80% year over year. And most of the work, I would say, yes, it was driven by Lebanese connections. We're not a good business developer, it's mostly Lebanese connections, but that did not give us trial projects as much as they opened us and invited us to tenders and to RFPs, where we did our best and we presented and we won the tenders. It's either connections or some partnerships with vendors that opened opportunities for us. So for me, it's more than testing us with small projects. It's like considering Lebanese companies on this board that you mentioned in regular tenders and let the best win. So as simple as that. We can be competitive and we can be of very high standards.
Right, right. Nagib, is there kind of a last question, because we are running out of time. So maybe you want to give one more question a chance and then we'll end.
Sure. One last question is maybe to all of you. I mean, how much of the work of your business is for customers in Lebanon versus outside? And maybe a follow-on to this question, which is, how do you think about growing your business more aggressively so that it creates more needs and job availability in Lebanon? Maybe Daniel, do you want to take on this and we can go around the room?
Sure. So I'll say for us at CME, the majority of our work is outside of Lebanon, and the US represents a big chunk of that. In terms of how we grow and develop opportunities, I've always been a believer that the best way to do it is by leading with the quality of your work. You do a good job and you will get referred, you will get other opportunities, etc. Obviously, connection helps, and the good work that George is doing here also helps. But ultimately, you really have to have a good reputation in terms of the work and the value you bring to your customers. And for us at CME, we're visible at the highest level of every company we work for. Even a company like Subway at the CIO level, and we provide references that high in terms of the quality of our work and the difference that we make.
Thanks, Daniel. Samir?
I would say like 90% of our work is for outside of Lebanon and mostly the US. And then again, most of our business development was done on word of mouth. So just a company telling about us to another company and we move from there. Like our cost on sales and on like business development is very low. And this is how we've done work for the last 13 years. I believe, again, retention and making sure that you have high quality of services is the number one thing that will make you sell and make you grow from there. Like we were probably 4 or 5 persons, we're now around 350. And all that, well, just growing and building on our customer retention.
Thanks, Samir. Fadi?
In our case, currently it's like 60% is export. We had at some periods 80%. We were a bit, the past 2 years, a bit on our comfort zone, having most of the banks in Lebanon, and suddenly they are out of market almost. But our export is a lot to Europe, but mostly to the Middle East and the Gulf currently.
Okay, thank you. Nagib?
We're effortlessly, and without even planning, we've somehow managed to be, for the past 20 years, 50-50, 50% in Lebanon, 50% outside Lebanon. During the past few months, we've seen a huge drop in our Lebanese portfolio because most of our customers are either closing or reducing. But we still have some big businesses that will survive this crisis that will still require some work from Lebanon. But we've set our mind, our being oriented toward external markets and to diversify in these markets. And we really focused on this, and then COVID came, and now outside markets are even slower and not moving as much as before. But the way we do it, the way we try to penetrate new market is we try to identify strategic partnership, people who have access to a client list that is very similar to ours, that are selling them a different service, maybe something that we can complement in our offering. And we have learned over the years how to take care of our partners and how to make sure they have a seamless integration with their client. We don't mess up, we don't make mistakes in the projects that we take from our partner. We try to really keep them on top. So it's beneficial for them to push our services forward. And this is how we were able to penetrate a new market. We're set currently on Europe because we have a good enough presence in the Middle East, and now we're focusing on North America and Europe.
Thanks, Nagib. Okay, well, back to you.
Nagib, thank you. Listen, I know that some other folks probably have last-minute questions. If you don't mind, send it to me at george@lebnet.us. I'll go ahead and forward it to some folks on this panel who can probably answer it. I know that Eli Mahoul and others have submitted questions. We apologize, we're running out of time. But do please send it to me, george@lebnet.us, and I'll make sure we'll get you some answers. Anyway, so thank you again for attending this session. Special thanks to our panelists. If you missed part of this webinar, we'll post the recording in the next 48 hours. As a matter of fact, I think the live stream will be available in a second. And then please stay tuned to other webinar announcements coming soon. Stay healthy and be safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, George. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.